but I feel there's a difference between catering to an adult toy collector versus a He-Man and She-Ra fan.
Mattel has lost light a little bit on managing the franchise.
The last time we really got that sort of synergy, toys work in concert with the show, was the Mike Young.
Hey everyone, welcome to Masters Cast, a podcast and video cast here on YouTube. I am John.
I am Martin.
I am Leanne, also known as Stratosmacker.
And I'm Josh the Lion Court, also known as Lion Court.
We are gathered here today, friends, because we are kind of not celebrating, but reflecting back on the He-Man fandom as a whole, which we've all been a part of for an extremely long time. And I want to preface that this is not a discussion on gatekeeping the fandom, because certainly everyone should be able to be a fan of whatever property they like, right, in their own way. This is not to discount anyone as a fan. But many of us were part of the original He-Man mailing list that dates, way back to like the early 90s on the internet, all the way progressing up through the He-Man.org community, which, objectively speaking, I think we can say was the core He-Man fandom for the majority of the online He-Man fandom years, coupled or complemented by the fact that we also had the existence of PowerCon, which was a specific convention for He-Man and She-Ra fans. PowerCon, as we know it as He-Man and She-Ra fans, ended in 2021, the He-Man and She-Ra version of it. It's since expanded and moved locations to cover a much broader base of fandom. And He-Man.org closed its doors a year ago. So what we wanted to kind of discuss was, what is the state of the fandom of He-Man and She-Ra? What is it to be a He-Man and She-Ra fan right now? Media, toys, movies, that sort of thing. And do we think that's a positive direction, a negative direction? Does Mattel need to throw in a lifesaver to the He-Man and She-Ra fans? That kind of thing. Given we're a year out now of everything being extremely fragmented and out there since He-Man.org left us. And one of the things we were talking about before we hit record is that we're also kind of in a state where really only the action figures that Mattel is putting out is kind of what is perhaps driving whatever fandom we have right now, because everything that's been new media-wise hasn't really caught on with the general public sense. Revelation and Revolution was out, the Netflix He-Man cartoon. That was canceled, not renewed, and it kind of got a lot of hate initially online. There was a rebooted kids cartoon, a CGI cartoon that also unfortunately didn't catch on. Years before that, we had the She-Ra reboot that was able to air all of its initial episode purchase by Netflix, but it didn't really go further than that, and certainly didn't have a successful toy line with it. So really all we have are the action figures. So anyway, I've rambled for a little bit, so I think someone else should take an opinion on current state. What are we doing?
I will continue with the point that I was making before we hit record. You were just talking about, which was just that I feel like Mattel at least has lost the plot a little bit on managing the franchise as a franchise. It feels like all of the story stuff they've done, whether that's animated shows or what have you, has all been kind of half-hearted. They haven't really put a lot into it. They want the franchise to be driven by the toys, which, on the one hand, you can understand they're a toy company, but that generally does not work. The Master Universe franchise in the 80s was driven by the Filmation cartoon, not the other way around. The toys did not make the cartoon made the toys. And the story that everybody grew up enjoying and everything was built by the writers at Filmation and such. And I think I think if we want to see a return of the franchise to, you know, probably not ever going to be its heyday, but like to a, you know, fairly successful fantasy property, they've got to start focusing on the media side of things, to doing a better job with that than they have in the last few years. That said, I don't know if I necessarily agree that that stuff hasn't caught on with the general public. I think the general public, at the very least, is more aware of Masters than they have been in decades right now. I I see a lot more references to it in unexpected places. Now, Stephen King has referenced Masters of the Universe 3 times in his books in the last 4 years, which is pretty wild considering the first 60 years of his career or whatever. He mentioned it once in a very oblique reference. So, I think there's that. When the new She-Ra was on Netflix getting spooled out, there was a lot of chatter on social media about that from people outside of the old school fandom or whatever. I think there is more awareness of the property, a lot more awareness than there was, a decade ago. So that's good, but I think a lot more effort has to be put into it. And I mean, let's face it too, Revelation and Revolution, right? Like we talked about those series in depth, and I think they did a pretty good job with the first half of Revelation, and kind of lost the plot on the second half. And the Revolution was fine. It wasn't amazing, but it was okay. It was better than the second half of Revelation. But you've got to do better than that. And I think where the second half in particular, Revelation, really fell down was the point that I started with here, right? Like, it was, let's get every toy that ever existed into this 5-episode arc. Let's get and some that didn't, right? Like some that have never existed or have only existed as one-off action figures, or Barbarian He-Man and the Eternia playset and Point Dread and all of these things. It's like, not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but it was just cramming all of that into the cartoon, whether they fit or not, and not having a strong story to go with it. And I think if they want it to be popular the way Marvel or Star Wars or DC even or whatever is, you've got to have the stories, whether that's in comic book form or movie form or whatever. It doesn't really matter the medium, but we've got to have good stories and good storytellers telling those stories, not executives at Mattel.
I agree with you that the focus of even the story, right, was more of to me, the Revolution played to the adult toy collector, which is still a valid, obviously, fan of He-Man and She-Ra, but I feel there's a difference between catering to an adult toy collector versus a He-Man and She-Ra fan. And the adult toy collector usually is not just collecting He-Man and She-Ra, but Mattel wants that piece of the pie, right? So you have adult toy collectors that are buying, Ninja Turtle things and Power Rangers and lots of very famous properties. DC, obviously, Marvel, like you said. Love the cat, Leanne.
I'm sorry, like there are 3 cats in here, so like I've got one on my lap. So every once in a while, you'll probably see a tail go by. Happens. I apologize.
But I don't know how you guys feel, but I felt this for a while. I'm not, even though there's toys behind me right here, I'm not an adult toy collector per se, because really I only collect Masters of the Universe not, I mean, I dabble in other things if it's a character I like, right? But I'm not part of the adult toy collector community. I'm a fan of He-Man and She-Ra. That's what drives me to buy all of this stuff. I think they were more wanting to expand that base because Mattel at the end of the day is a toy company. So it makes sense to me from a business perspective of what they were doing, but I agree with you, Josh, that I think you can have both of those worlds
I think you
colliding,
have
and
to
yeah,
if you
it
want it,
starts
if you
more
want
with the
any kind of
story.
longevity. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel, I mean, obviously the people who worked on these shows, like Revolution and Revelation, and the She-Ra show and the CGI show, I mean, obviously they loved what they did and they put a lot into it. But I feel like the last time we really got that sort of synergy of toys working with, like, in concert with the show was the Mike Young show. And maybe that's because I was kind of behind the scenes on that from the comic book side. So I saw how we all work together, like to introduce toys, like into the comics or into the TV show as it was airing. I don't know if there's really that, anymore. It just seems like if the toys don't do well, they cancel the show, which, I mean, I don't know. It seems like the priorities are kind of off.
Yeah, here's Exhibit A. Exhibit A to make the point that Mattel is just focused on adult toy collectors, really, and not on making the franchise successful. Turtles of Grayskull. Like, this, I don't think appeals to hardly anyone like us that are actual Master Universe fans, unless you also happen to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan. I am not. And they have zero appeal to me. Someone who has bought virtually everything that's ever existed, Masters of the Universe wise, that I could afford. Even those, stupid samurai warrior variants in the 2000X era,
Yep.
and whatever. It's like I've gotten all of it, and I can't bring myself to buy those. It's ridiculous to me. So, but I can see where that would appeal to. You're an adult toy collector who happens to collect both of those. Sure. Or even just one of them, right? You're the adult toy collector that collects turtles, but oh, hey, they did these weird turtles. I gotta get these. So, but if you're a fan of the franchise, that's not, I don't think, what any any of the fans of the franchise are looking for. Not when there's plenty of characters, Malaktha, that I'm still waiting for.
Right.
Just to piggy off what you said really quick, that Turtles of Grayskull is the crack that started in my mindset of He-Man and She-Ra fan that needs to buy everything. Because I used to buy everything, including Masterverse, new Eternia designs that, they weren't in Revolution. They're just like, here's another Beastman for you, right? And I'm buying it. The Turtle line, which I did buy some of, just to preface, I did buy some that I thought looked cool, and I did watch the Turtle cartoon and the movies as a kid, but I don't follow the Ninja Turtle fandom at all. I did buy a few, but it was the crack that started of, you know what? I don't need to buy everything. Why do I feel like I do need to buy everything? I'm not an adult toy collector. I'm a fan of He-Man and She-Ra, and I'm a fan more of the media, too, of He-Man and She-Ra than the toys. The toys, even as a child, for me, were very secondary. It was all about the cartoon for me as a child. And it's come to the point where I've started not buying all of Masterverse, especially those new Eternia things. And I also haven't been buying, like, again, this is catered to that adult toy collector, these new Snake Men variants and things that they're putting out in the Origins line. I'm like, we have so many official Masters of the Universe, Princess of Power, New Adventures characters that you could put, even if you redesign them or something, I don't know, into Origins. instead of making all of these random, here's like Rattler's, neck and head on top of a different snake person's body. And I don't want to squash the creativity of the people creating these characters, but for me, they're just not necessary. And now I'm like, wow, this is the first time where I felt I do not need to buy everything in order to be a He-Man and She-Ra fan. It's a very weird mindset where I've always felt like I'm a super fan. I need to buy everything, that comes out within reason. Especially with the action figure lines, I think. And I'm at the point where I buy a lot of stuff on Big Bad Toy Store because I don't have, some of the stuff you never see it in Walmart or Target. And I wait till the last minute to ship that pile of loot. For anyone that doesn't know, they let you keep your purchases in like a holding bin for a certain number of days until you have to ship them so that you can wait for more action figures to come in, which is a great service. Love it. And then when I finally ship the loot, I don't even open it. I literally have a pile of loot box unopened that I got like a weeks ago, just sitting here on my floor. And I don't even know what Masterverse or Origins is in it. There's probably a turtle of Grayskull in there. I have no idea what's in the box. And it's like, I'm not motivated to even open it because there's nothing else supporting me as a He-Man and She-Ra fan other than the action figures, which are lovely to look at. But I even got to the point where I took down most of my Origins and I put up vintage figures, from my original childhood collection, because I'm like, why are all of these in a box and I'm putting out all of the Origins? I'm like, I should look at my vintage ones.
I will say, like, in partial defense of the Turtles of Grayskull stuff, to disclaimer, I've not bought any of them, but I do think in their defense, like, it seems as though Mattel is just trying everything to potentially get kids into Masters stuff. And it's like, there's a new Turtles movie out. The kids, they like Turtles. If we put Turtles with He-Man, they'll buy it and they'll think it's Turtles. That's how I imagine the meetings go at Mattel. Just like, if we associate everything together, the kids won't know, and then they'll realize who Skeletor is because they like the Turtle stuff, and they'll buy this. So I kind of get the logic behind it. But at the same time, yeah, I agree with what's been said. Particularly the weird figure choices that we've got an Origins line which has barely touched New Adventures and She-Ra. And yeah, there's like 5 Sunman figures and like you say, John, all the Snake Men. I feel like it's been Snake Men for like 10 years and it's all I ever see. And I was amazed that my local toy store had Origin stuff in it last week. And they were all discounted. Great for me, who picked up lots of the cartoon collection figures, which I found in there. But like, they had like a couple. They had like a cartoon Clawful and Evelyn, and literally everything else on the shelf was like Snake Armor Man at Arms, another Snake Teela, Snake Armor He-Man, and I was like, didn't this happen 20 years ago? Didn't we go through this with the 2002 stuff?
Yep.
And that was considered to be a bad idea then. Let's do it again. It's been 2 decades. We'll try the Snake Men again.
Well, yeah, remember, for those who don't recall, the Mike Young Show changed its name to Masters of the Universe versus the Snake Men, all because the Snake Pit episode of the first season was the highest rated episode of the season. So they were like, "Oh, kids love Snake Men. That's what we'll do."
It's very inexplicable to me.
Yeah.
I will say though, I have just bought what is my favorite Master of the Universe toy in many years, which I will shamelessly plug for you now as it is next to me. It is the Skeletor throne.
Oh, see, I haven't opened that yet. I did buy it.
That's cool.
I really like, and it's got little glowing lights on it, which change color when you press the button to a different colored glow. And that, I think, is the best thing I've seen in years. So I was very impressed with this, and I felt that needed a shout out. But
So can you remind me? So I have that in a pile of loot that I haven't opened. I think I opened it, but I didn't open the box that came in. Is it battery powered, and did it come with that Skeletor?
it came with that Skeletor. I've swapped the head
Okay,
for the first one, but yeah, it came with him, and it is indeed battery powered.
nice. I feel like that should go on my desk right here.
I know that would look nice.
I
It's
need
a
to
good
open
piece.
that. It's always a surprise when I open a pile of loot.
But at the same time, John, like you said about your vintage stuff,
Mhm.
the only stuff I've got on display at the moment, like I've put this out, but I've also got a New Adventures like shelf. And recently, like I bought a carded New Adventures Skeletor from like 1988, which I've always meant to do, and got him like mint on card. And I do feel like just going back to the older stuff rather than embracing the newer stuff. I'm of a similar mindset.
Dude, 100% with you. I've started, so I do have holes in my vintage collection here and there. And I'm even talking like I might be missing a vehicle, I might be missing a children's book. I said to myself, instead of buying the 8th variant of Beastman in Masterverse or what have you, or random hodgepodge snake person, why don't I go back and spend that money on vintage stuff that I don't have? Whether it is a storybook or a shampoo bottle, anything that was from the vintage stuff that I actually might have had as a kid, even, and something like that would have been thrown away, like a toothbrush or something. I don't know. But yeah, I have a nearly complete vintage He-Man and She-Ra, and then I'd say New Adventures is like 90% complete. Like I don't have some of the expensive things like was it like Hook'em Flog, those type of variants I don't have. And in fact, She-Ra might be the only one I have 100% complete, except for like the fashion line, the fashion outfits that you could get for those. But I said to myself, why am I spending all of this money? And then Mattel's not even putting out media that I want. They are I'm not discounting comic books. I like when they do the comic books, but now they're doing Turtles, the Turtles of Grayskull, comic, and I'm just not interested in a crossover with the Turtles. Like it just seems like you said, it's like either they're trying to just expand the toy collecting base, or they're also trying to appeal, like a kid might see that in the toy aisle and see Turtles and be like, and then have, they would want that. There was a Stranger Things tie-in too. It's like,
yeah,
He-Man is not in Stranger Things. Like, why is
one.
there I also didn't buy that, even when it got discounted at Target. I was just like, I've seen Stranger Things, but like I have no desire to have merchandise, especially when it's not connected to He-Man anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the last toy line that I bought was the Maddie Collector, when they were doing the subscription, and then Super 7 picked it up. That's the last time I've really collected. I mean, if I see, like, obviously I get the Stratoses,
Of course.
And that's actually the last one I got was the Filmation. Was it Origins figure?
Yeah, the new cartoon collection.
Yes. So that's the last one I bought, but I just like kind of pick and choose, if I see one I like, I might get it. But yeah, I feel so disconnected from it. Like, the toy collecting, as a whole.
Well, and it worries me in the sense that they're putting out all of these new characters, and we only have like really a handful or two of original, at least Masters of the Universe characters that need to be released in Origins. Like that we'll have the entire vintage line in Origins if they just, like, I think there's like 10 or so more left, like like Storied and Blade, the movie figures they don't have out, and things like that. Like they did announce some of them that are missing, like Rio Blast was announced at Comic-Con and he was shown and things like that. So if you discount She-Ra, not putting She-Ra in the vintage, there's not that many left. to release. So I'm like, TikTok. I mean, I'll buy those, but they've jump started the cartoon collection. Like, where's the rest?
Aren't they? Don't they do an awful lot of figures as just exclusives now as well?
They have been, yeah, on Maddie.
Because
not Maddie Collector, but
I've still not got Grizzlaw because he was an exclusive figure.
Because he was exclusive.
And they seem to have done it for loads of them, and particularly in the UK. Just makes them near impossible to get. Yeah.
Yeah, I only have Grizzlore was a Mattel Creations exclusive, definitely.
I was going to say I don't a couple of things. One, I don't think it matters for me personally. It doesn't really matter if they have gotten all of the characters from the original toy line. You used Real Blast as the example a minute ago. Like Real Blast, I have no connection to, no love for, no interest in. I really do not care if they release Real Blast or not. And I think part of that is, he wasn't in the Filmation cartoon. In fact, I don't think he's been in any animated or outside of probably a mini comic somewhere. He was
in Revolution.
Yeah, he was. Revolution he got more screen time than Stratos, guys. So.
Yeah.
But like really, really minor character that doesn't have a strong story pull for me. Like a lot of Filmation characters we've never gotten do, and so there's that aspect of it. I think I want to balance it out a little bit in that I'm not fully against the the all new type characters that they've been doing. It's just been overboard for me personally. Like the Snake Men are my least favorite faction across the franchise, right? Like, and that was true even back when I was a kid. I did not find them interesting, which amuses me in that both the CGI show and the Mike Young show died during the or after the Snake Men came into it. It's just because I don't think they have the appeal of like the Horde or whatever. I do think the Horde's way more interesting, and the Snake Men are kind of boring. But that said, I actually really liked the Viper figure that they just did. That's supposed to be like the living embodiment of Viper Tower from the Eternia set and stuff. Like, I actually like the figure. I like the design. I thought it was pretty cool. You can do some like that. The problem is they've been way too heavy-handed with it over the last year or two. Martin mentioned the Sunman group of characters and the there's been a ton of new snake people, and it's like we got it in the classics line, but like where's the Horde mummy? Where is whatever? Like there is some other more interesting ones you could do there, and of course there's characters from the Filmation line or the She-Ra or from the Filmation series or from the She-Ra line and or cartoon that we haven't seen yet that fans of the property would be a lot more interested in. And I think this is, well, I think Martin kind of hit it on the head there, where it's almost like we're having a rerun of the same problem we had during the 2000X series, where it's like Mattel is so focused on toys. How many different toys can we get there? How many different versions of He-Man can we do? How many whatever, without a whole lot to justify their existence from a story perspective. And if you're just going for the toy collector, I guess that's what you do. But if you want the franchise to be a blockbuster, you have to have the story to back up the toys. That's what made Star Wars huge. That's what made the original He-Man and the Masters of the Universe huge, were those stories, and we're sorely missing that. And I think part of that is that Mattel is not letting good storytellers tell the stories they want to tell. I am very much in the camp that I think Revelation would have been better if they had just let Kevin Smith do what he wanted to do. He is a good storyteller, whatever you think of his personality and stuff. And having the story more dictated by the higher ups at Mattel for the second half, I think hurt it a lot. And who is it that made the Filmation series so great? It was the writers like Larry DiTillio, J. Michael Straczynski, Paul Dini, right? Like, again, regardless of what you think of any of these people's personalities, we're talking about very, very talented writers. And we had really talented writers in the 2000X series for sure. Some of the same ones. And that series, I'm sorry, and there's probably going to be a huge disagreement here somewhere along the line, but I think the Mike Young series was way better than any of the series we've gotten in the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it's been. The She-Ra one was the closest. That was a good, solid series. But I enjoy a lot about Revelation and Revolution. I did not enjoy the CGI show, as we all know. But even at their best moments, they were pale in comparison to the Mike Young show, and that's unfortunate because I think Mattel has to do that if they want the franchise to have any kind of longevity.
I like the point you made of the recent He-Man media is very heavy-handed with Mattel, or Mattel is very heavy-handed with that. The She-Ra reboot, however, as we know, not heavy-handed by Mattel.
Right.
And DreamWorks gave that creative team what seems to be a lot of freedom, right, when they were developing that show. So whether you agree with the changes they made in the new
She-Ra better
reboot,
story.
it was a much better story, right? Like the whole, and just the writing on that show was vastly superior to what we got in Revelation Revolution.
Yep.
Yep, I totally agree.
Character driven, the She-Ra show. And the CGI show. I'm really fond of the CGI show.
I really like the CGI show. I think it did a great job at trying something fresh with it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Can I, let me, this was a point I wanted to make. I was talking about this the other day and you just reminded me of it with that comment. This is the other issue I think that Mattel has lost in terms of, I think it was Martin a minute ago, talking about trying to appeal to kids and stuff. I think one big issue in having Mattel in control and not having really good storytellers in control is an issue that all of these series have had, except for the new She-Ra one, is, and this actually includes the Mike Young show. This was the problem I had with the Mike Young show too. There is no mystery in Masters in modern eras, right? Like, kids are not being encouraged to use their imaginations or whatever, or to think of questions to ponder. Where did Castle Grayskull come from? Or what is the power exactly? Or any of these things that we did growing up, right? Everything is explained. Who is Skeletor really? All of these things are spelled out so explicitly in all of the new media that there is no sense of wonder or mystery. And that was a big, really big problem with the CGI show. I think that it's, the Revelation show, almost by definition, by its name, was like, we're going to explain everything that was never explained before to you in this series. And so on. Whereas the She-Ra show, to a lesser extent, there were a lot of mystery left in that, right? Because they couldn't talk about Eternia really. They could mention it. We didn't know what Grayskull was or whatever. Like, so there, that had that sense of mystery more so. But Mattel seems to be hell-bent on taking away any sense of wonder or mystery out of the franchise, and I think that's really unfortunate.
Well, what would you say? Do we think He-Man and She-Ra would ever be able to be popular with children as a fan base again? Is it
No.
only an adult pop property, right? And either way, like, what's their best move to at least keep it alive as either a children's property, adult property, what have you? Like, can He-Man and She-Ra appeal to modern children of this era?
I'm going to say no because I don't know what else they can try. Because we've done a CGI show for the kids, we've done a She-Ra show for the kids, we've done a cartoon for the older fans, we've done toy. They seem to have tried everything, and it doesn't seem to be sticking. And I don't know what else you can do apart from, like, I don't know, a video game. Like, I think it's like the G.I. Joe stuff is kind of similar at the moment. They've not done a cartoon for, I want to say, about 10 years now. They've just done like a comic relaunch, which is very much in keeping with the 80s cartoon stuff. The toys are popular, but they haven't got any new media on. I think there's potentially some sort of crossover movie, maybe. But I remember them trying a video game a couple of years ago, and that was their attempt to go, the kids like Fortnite, let's do G.I. Joe Fortnite, and that didn't catch on either. And I don't know where you go with it. I think they've tried what they can try, and I don't know where else there is to go. I know one thing, but I won't say it yet. Maybe that'll be perhaps the next episode. But I don't know. If I was a Mattel executive, I think I would struggle to relaunch stuff at this point. I'm genuinely unsure.
But
what
like,
they would do.
how is it because I feel like Turtles, that has been able to reinvent itself so many times with new cartoon series and movies and stuff, and that seems to be still really popular with kids.
I wonder if with Turtles, it's like the consistency with which they do it. Like, they never give up with Turtles. Like,
yeah,
you don't have a gap. Like, He-Man had like New Adventures to Mike Young 10 years, Mike Young to Revelation, like, how long was that? 20 years?
Like 20 years, yeah.
There's always a massive gap.
The She-Ra gap,
whereas like Turtles has been consistent. Like, it's always there, you know.
Like, the original Turtle show ended in like 1997. Then we got the new one like 3 years later. Then that ended. Then we got a CGI one. You got a CGI movie in between. Then you got another Turtle show. Then you got another Turtles movie. Like, they have never given up.
Is it like the people? I mean, I don't really know the corporation side, like how that stuff works with, Turtles. But could it be that they just kind of they like believe in the property, so they just kind of let it's the people behind these series just like do what they want? Are they more hands off with it? Is it kind of something like that? Whereas I feel like with Mattel, they seem to just give up on He-Man. Like, if the toys don't sell well, based on these series, then they just give up and they cancel it.
That though, like Nickelodeon owns the Turtles, right? Nickelodeon is not a toy company.
Good point.
Can I jump in?
Toys are probably seen to them as this is
secondary
Turtles merchandise. Yeah,
right.
Like,
right.
Then there's vast pools of different merchandise, from wrapping paper to turtle toys. Whereas Mattel, bread and butter is the toys.
Yeah,
that's why I think we're kind of illustrating that with Turtles. Turtles is not driven by toy sales necessarily, because they're owned by an entertainment company, which Mattel, despite rebranding or whatever they want to think because of the success of the Barbie movie, they are not an entertainment company. They are a toy company.
Yeah.
All right, so here's my thinking on this. I think there's two roads, and Mattel keeps taking the wrong one. So the way in this has been true for a long time, but it's becoming more true as the decades go by. I think the big properties that are very successful are not exclusively children's properties. This is part of the problem I have with the CGI show, and it's actually, I think, maybe part of the problem with the Revelation show, right? Like the CGI show was, this is the show for kids, and Revelation was, this is the show for adults. And when you think about franchises that are very popular, they sort of transcend age group, right? They're, whether you're talking back in the day Star Wars, or you're talking about Marvel, or the DC heroes, or the Turtles even. When I was a kid, maybe early teenager, when the first Turtle movies were coming out, my uncle was the big Turtles fan, and that was what made me aware of it, because he liked the movies and things, and he was an adult. And kids connect not just with other kids, but with their parents, with relatives that are adults, whatever, through different franchises and things. And I think Mattel is trying too hard to make Masters something that's just for kids, and here we'll do some separate stuff that we'll throw out to adults. And I think that effort needs to encompass everybody, right? Like just like the Marvel movies have done, or whatever, right? Like kids have seen the Marvel movies. My nephew has seen every single Marvel movie. He loves all the Marvel movies and stuff like that. And those are not quote unquote for kids. And I think that's the direction Mattel needs to go in, is streamline their efforts and try to have something for everyone. And even beyond the things that I just named off, the franchises I just named off, right? Like, this has been true for a long, long, long time. The Flintstones was a cartoon for adults when it first came out in the 1960s. It was sort of the Simpsons, South Park, or whatever of its day. It was not aimed at children at all, and that franchise is still recognized by virtually everybody 60 years later, because it did have the cross appeal. And I think that's where Mattel needs to go if they want the franchise to be successful with kids and successful in general, is not try so hard to, this has to be a hit with kids. Even in the 80s, when the Filmation cartoon was on, because the storytelling was so strong, because they had so many great writers who went on to do other shows, for adults and things like that. They had Larry DiTillio, who had done all the role-playing game stuff and all of this stuff. They had all these great storytellers, right? My parents, my aunts and uncles with their kids, sometimes groups of us all together, would all be watching those shows. And, the adults in my family all knew all the characters and the storylines and everything. They were interested in it to some degree. And I think that's what we need to see happen going forward, is a more all-inclusive approach to the franchise.
I wonder if the reason that we have that approach as well is because of that segregation. So Mattel are very aware that they have two completely different age groups now. So it's not like people who've been able to grow up with some sort of property. It's like, we know that there's people who liked the original stuff who are now going to be 40 plus or whatever. And we know that we don't really necessarily need to appeal to those people, but shall we try and do both? It feels like that's what they were doing with the CGI and Revelation stuff. Like the fans want something more adult, but that's not necessarily what Mattel needs.
Or Transformers. Look at the Transformers film franchise. Love it or hate it. It was very successful across the board, right? With kids and adults.
Mm.
And kept that franchise going at the time.
Well, one thing we are going to talk about, but not right now, is the fact that forever and ever and ever, Mattel has been trying to get a Masters of the Universe movie off, into the stratosphere so that we can watch it. And it seems like it might be happening now. But I think we'll save that conversation for another time. But a good point.
For another journey.
With the transfer. Pardon?
For another journey.
Yes, for another
Exactly.
journey.
Yeah.
Probably after I hit stop record and I hit record again. Well, besides a movie then, any final thoughts? Should Mattel be trying to appeal? Like if you are a toy company, are they doing the right thing right now? It's just how happens that I, as a He-Man and She-Ra fan, don't need 27 variants of, a character redesign. I don't need multiple toy lines going on that I'm just going to feel exhausted, right? And leave my stuff in a box right here and just wait for the next, cartoon. Is there something else they should be doing? Or do they see this as successful? And maybe I'm just the outlier.
I don't think you're an outlier. I think the fans of the franchise, this is where a lot of us are, I think.
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry.
No, and after you.
I'm not like I have friends who still buy the figures, and that's actually how I am able to see what's coming out, because they'll send me pictures and stuff. Shout out to Paul Stricker, because he usually keeps me up to date on all the stuff he buys, and that's how I see these things. And I mean, in general, like, the box art's gorgeous. I see where this would appeal to collectors, but I don't know. I don't know how much Mattel believes in it, in the property, I guess. I don't know. For me, I just feel kind of in limbo, with the whole thing. I don't know what the right course is, other than to, believe in the property and maybe take a chance and, like the original did.
Yeah, I'm of a similar mind. I'm by no means like disenfranchised, disenchanted with everything that's going on. I think they're still making lots of very good figures. I don't buy everything really consistently, but I do like that throne. But like they're still cranking out really good stuff. I think the Masterverse stuff is the best toy line we've had for ages, and I wasn't a huge classics person. I do think the Masterverse stuff is really genuinely very good. I do think you need something. I think they're falling into the same trap they've always fallen into at the moment, where it's like they've got nothing to support the toys or to bring new people in. And the Origin stuff is in a weird place to me. The Masterverse stuff, not so much. I think they're doing much better with that. But what's going on with the Revolution cartoon? Is that cancelled? Is there another season of that coming? They haven't said anything. I would really like another season. I thought the last one was good. Do something. Just keep it active in the minds of people, because people did like that last season. Maybe some sort of cinematic experience might turn it around if they get it right. Perhaps that's a discussion for 5 minutes time, but I think they're still doing good stuff, but it does seem like we're in a weird bit of a limbo period at the moment, where no one's quite sure what's going on, what works, and what people actually like.
I wanted to make a point too about the online fandom. Did the whole dramatic, PowerCon stopped being about, He-Man and She-Ra, and He-Man.org, died a year ago and is offline now. There have been other things that spring up, right? Like Facebook groups are extremely popular with He-Man and She-Ra fans. There's a really good website called For Eternia that he's always up on the latest news. I, follow him on Instagram and Facebook and get it's so easy to find the new He-Man news. And there's a forum on there. I love Battle Ram blog, which he goes into so much research and detail on, the toys and the characters. Like, it feels very nostalgic how we kind of used to talk about and find new information about the toys, the characters, the cartoons, etc. back on the mailing list days, things like that. So there are little pockets of awesomeness I still feel in the online community. It is just now fragmented. I feel it's not like a core community anymore, and that's okay. So I just wanted to say that to not discount, anyone that's, loves particular websites and things like that, because there are still a lot of good things on there. I think, though, as an adult, we all got involved in the mailing list, He-Man.org, when we were at a much younger age than we are now. Like, Martin said, the core fan base now is 40 plus, basically, of the original He-Man and She-Ra. So I think it's just harder for me to adapt to also, like, new things. Like, yeah, I already talked about this stuff for years. I don't need to go on a Facebook group or join a new forum that popped up to discuss kind of the same things, I guess. So I think that's part of the problem too, is just general, getting older and learning things about yourself, like even collecting the vintage toys. Not all my toys have all their accessories. I used to think like, oh man, my King Hiss doesn't have his shield. This is a major problem. I need to go on eBay now and find the shield because I can't find my original childhood one. Where is it? My collection is not complete. And I said to myself, who cares? Why do I care about the shield? I have King Hiss. That's enough. Like, I started doing things like that where I was like, just because you have everything complete and mint in box, or, there's no imperfection on the discoloration of your scare glow, you must have the perfect collection to be a fan. And as an adult, I've really stepped away from that. I feel than that old mindset I had where you had to have everything, and it was kind of like you had to prove yourself. So who are you proving it to? You should just be enjoying the property, which is what I plan to do as we continue forward. Any other final thoughts? Cool.
Well, I just hope the movie's good.
Yeah, I heard there's going to be a movie.
If it happens.
Yeah, we should talk about that in just a teeny bit. Yeah. If you're watching on YouTube, though, thank you. If you're still listening to the podcast, and I see you people downloading because I get the statistics, thank you for that, too. You can visit us at masterscast.com, or if you're watching on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe. It helps. It really does. But thanks for downloading, listening, whatever. I'm John.
I am Martin.
I am Leanne.
I'm just Lioncourt.
And as always, we wish you a
good journey.
Good journey.
Yeah.
It's so much harder to do on the video because I feel
it is.
It's like, when are they going to stop talking and then start again?
I'm going to get mine out as soon as possible and then move on. That's the way to do it.
It is.
Comic Radio with Warriors.